No mai ki Whangarei District for Thursday the 22nd of July. A very warm welcome to all of our councillors, including Councillor Benny, who's coming through to us via Teams. We have no apologies at this stage, so I'm hoping that Councillor Cutforth is just running a little late. We'll just open our meeting with a karakia, and Councillor Golightly is doing a karakia this morning.
Tuia irunga, tuia iraro, tuia tinako kia pātuki tahi, kia kimihia, kia rapua, ti māmatanga, ti mohiranga, ti heiwa moria. Bind all that is above before us, bind all that is below after us. Bind our collective hearts that they may beat in unison as we seek after enlightenment and clarity and seize the breath of life.
Also a very warm welcome to members of the public and of course our fabulous hard-working staff. Councillors, our first item of the agenda is a public forum. We have 3 people who have requested to speak to a public forum today. The first 2 of our speakers are Elizabeth and Linda, and they're going to be speaking to us on Glenmore Road. We're going to combine them, so there's a total length of time of 10 minutes, because they also have a video presentation that they'd like to present to us. So a very warm welcome to you both. Please come forward and we'll listen with intent. Oh, is that a weapon?
I promise it's not.
Toothpick. King's toothpick. Why toothpick? Just saying that.
Over to you.
Tēnā koutou councillors, my name is Elizabeth Corrales and I've lived at 456 Glenmore Road, Waipu for 11 years. I'm not only a resident, but I am a St John's qualified crime trained nurse to attend accidents on State Highway 1 or on any road in Northland. Today we're here to advocate that Council prioritises Glenmore Road for sealing the last 1k with urgency. Glenmore is the only strategic high benefit road for State Highway 1 following accidents from the Bray to Brenduris. Or for police emergencies, for example, recently the tsunami warnings. Yes, we are high ground. I have 620 signed members of the public supporting the seal and 6 significant resident letters attached. So please read them. We are going to leave a pamphlet here, a booklet here for you all. We do not leave visitors stranded. We do not necessarily report to our very busy policemen every accident. True New Zealand, we just get on with it. Your 2019 to 2020 plan states our community outcomes are based on what the public tell us is most important to them. This is it. Asking for urgent consideration and assistance from Council. My first petition was in 2014, handed to Dr. Retty, delivered to Council, and me and I responded 12/12/2014 to Dr. Retty. At that time, 200 vehicles daily were reported to use the road. The area has grown enormously since then. For Council, that means more rates, which should in part come back to our area. Doubling road use numbers in 2021 would be conservative. No accidents? This is not supported by the account of accidents on the gravel by Trevor Vale, recently ex-fire chief of Waipu, a respected member of our community, given his 44 years service in the fire service and 11 as Waipu fire chief officer, and his service as a tow truck owner. He reports numerous accidents on the gravel, 2 cars roll, 3 head-ons, fire brigade having to cut people out, ute, trailer, jackknifed, to name but a few. But please read his full letter, it is empowering. Here we are 7 years later in my second petition. This has been backed by Emily Henderson MP Labour, Dr. Retty MP National, Councillors thank you, Shelley Deming and Kim Cooper, all very aware of the road's significance. It is supported by Waipu business and a wide range of locals plus visitors. In particular, local chemist Brendan Wells, who after the fire and destruction of the chemist shop delivered prescriptions daily to the residents at dusk. No small task in wet winters and dusty summers. IT Waipu truck drivers, the refuse truck, postie, the rural courier service, the milk tankers, service vehicles and the school bus driver all have supported this petition. There's no other alternative for these services to come to the residents on the gravel bar getting on the gravel. The theme is consistent. Concerns about the increase of traffic, the safety of the road, visitors to the area who are unaware of the gravel section and how to navigate it, plus health issues with the PM10 dust. The last Whangarei District Council document cited on proposed seal extension program 2012 had Glenmore listed as one of only 2 strategic link roads on the document for seal completion. Yet we see Massey Road has had 2.5 k's recently sealed, a dead-end road. This has been a talking point in our community. In this, you'll see on the video, which hopefully will come up soon, this is a state highway emergency high benefit road, and I think you'll agree this is not what it should look like. Within 3 weeks of grading the road, it's full of potholes, corrugations, gravel not over the road but to the sides. Motorists have no alternative but to drive on the wrong side of the road, and sometimes appalling conditions at 30 to 40 k's maximum. Very dangerous. The drain near the gravel meets the road at the top is full of gravel. Helen Childs reports yesterday that heavy rain blocked drains. The blocked drain means the water cascades down across the road, making matters worse near her property. Dead tree, my crop, on the bend with falling branches. You'll see this in a minute. Here's an example of today's trip. Clearly this is not safe to drive under. This tree's been notified to council more than once and we're told the road is okay. Well, it isn't. Gravel chips, broken car windows, number of thousands. Serious accidents not mentioned already. One neighbour breaking his neck coming off the gravel. Fortunately not resulting in him in a wheelchair. My family helped an Italian tourist uplift his Harley Davidson Roadster after he came off the blind corner in the gravel. I said, "Why are you treading down our road?" His reply, "AA said okay, rural route, but didn't tell me about unsafe road." Is this what we want to present to our tourists? He's not the only driver I've helped on the blind corner and given first aid to. The PM10 dust is well reported, and in particular by Dr. Nick Chamberlain's letter to Northern District Council 2012, relating to 1,700 deaths in New Zealand per year to dust-related disease. You will find in our pack a letter from a neighbour who, one of 6 significant letters. He had the dust machine at his place from council showed unacceptable levels at his residence over 2 weeks, and that wasn't even at a time of southeasterlies, our major problem. Recently on the Bray, the director put a very large sign up, picture provided in our document, clearly indicating that Glenmore Road is a road of significance. Recently, on the 11th of the 7th, we had a 2-car accident at the intersection of Nova Scotia Road. Cars were directed up Glenmore Road in filthy weather. Several drivers, to their peril, tracked back to Waipu and asked, "Is there any way out?" Well, no, there's not. They didn't feel safe, so they sat and had coffee and then moved on. 750 vehicles can be redirected at times. Clearly, our way out of COVID-19 economically for Northland is tourism. The AA promote Glenmore as a tourist route, but no mention of the gravel section. Tourists are totally unprepared for gravel blind corners. Accidents and near misses happen often. Paying for the seal, which I know you are very interested in. I have not had one negative comment for those on the gravel that I've spoken to. All just want this one last case sealed as soon as possible. So benefits to yourselves and safety to north and south in emergency, less visits for maintenance, ensuring residents are living a healthy and safe environment, as is your policy. Tourism is given a pleasant, safe experience and safe road to connect State Highway 1 for all who use it, whether local or otherwise. This community wants safe travel for all. This road prioritised sealing of the 1K gravel and an acknowledgement and set time frame for this. Thank you for your time. Please avail yourselves of our pack, and we have also presented a video for you to see. I'll hand over to Linda.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Glibbery, and I'm a new resident of Waipu. I've been here for nearly 2 years. I'm from Australia, and I live on Cottage Hill Way, which is a private road which comes off Harwood. So I have a little bit of experience of driving on a gravel road, but for me, Glenmore Road is the key road for going south, and it's the quickest route and the best route. I'm also called upon by my family to collect my niece, or sometimes a neighbour's son, from the Otamatea High School bus. If it's a short notice request, I have gone down Glenmore, I've reached the gravel stretch, and I've looked at the state of the potholes and so forth, and I go, no, I'm not going down there. I've turned around and I've had to come all the way back around. So I'm not on Glenmore, but I'm a resident of Waipu, and this road is strategic to me and my neighbours, and we would really like to see something done. Just as far as Cottage Hill Way, we're reflective of Waipu's changing community. There's only 7 houses. Of those 7 houses, we represent a number of countries. We've got a few Kiwis, we've got people from the US, South Africa, United Kingdom, and Australia. My hybrid accent is because I've got an English husband, so it gets a bit wonky sometimes. So for the residents of the southern end of South Road and the roads off Harwood and Massey Road, that road, Glenmore, is our direct route. And so that's our preferred route to get to State Highway 1. What we've also found is with the influx of people coming into the community wanting this lifestyle block experience, that the houses and the people have increased tenfold. 2 of my neighbours on my little private road have Airbnb properties, and the majority of their guests actually arrive from the south. And the route they travel is Glenmore Road. And you might ask the question, well, why? Why don't they just keep going and then go through Waipu? It's because everyone has smartphones these days. When we want to find what's the quickest route to get somewhere, we get on a number of different apps. It might be the Whakapatahi Journey Planner, the AA Journey Planner, or it could just be Google Maps. So they're plugging this in, and they're all being directed to go down Glenmore Road. So you turn off the highway, it's beautiful, it's sealed, and suddenly bang, there's a sign, gravel road. And for a lot of people, they've never ever experienced driving on a gravel road. And some of them, for the people I've spoken to in the Airbnbs, they've been most frightened to live down in the night because there's no lights. And if you're travelling at 80 kilometres an hour and suddenly you see this sign, gravel, and you haven't reduced your speed and time. And some of them have had some really terrible experiences. And particularly for me, the one I hate is the blind corner on Glenmore Road. So with this process, when I heard that Ms. Morales was actually firing up to try and get something done about Glenmore Road, I thought, well, I want to support her in her endeavours. With this process, we have spoken to literally hundreds of people. We've had so much support from people in the community, whether it be the posties. We even got an actual spot at the local boutique market because the organisers of that were as supportive of what we were trying to achieve. So there on that Sunday in the pouring rain, the day that there was that diversion because of an accident, we got to speak to so many people, and all of them, even those people that live on gravel roads and go, well, why is Glenmore more important than my road? And I go, well, what's your road? Oh, so your road is only for residents and it goes to a dead end. This is a road that supports our entire community to get onto State Highway 1. And after sort of you start to banter around...
We'll just need to stop there.
Okay, is that against it, but this is a hard copy for everyone to
Thank you so much.
read pictures.
To present to us. Just by way of clarification for those in the room, this is not a decision-making forum, it is a public forum
Yeah.
where you do bring your issues to us. So we thank you both for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, our next presenter in the public forum is Comrade Laponia from Habitat for Humanity, supported by communities. Welcome.
Hi.
And just to be clear, we've got a 5-minute slot. The previous presenters were doubled up.
I know. Oh, can I make a case? So I've got my colleague here. 5? No worries. Okay. Hi, Kia ora koutou, District Mayor and Councillors and Chief Executive. My name is Conrad Point. I'm the Chief Executive of Habitat for Humanity in the Northern Regions. I'm here to briefly articulate what we perceive the needs and constraints in regard to housing access in Whangarei, and hopefully present some solutions for your consideration. Just a brief introduction to Habitat for Humanity. We're a housing charity and a registered community housing provider active in New Zealand since 1994. In that time, we've built over 550 homes in what is now defined as a progressive home ownership product. This is a rent-to-buy program for people on lower to middle incomes to get them into home ownership. We also own and manage a number of social rental properties for people on the public housing register, both in Taitoko and across New Zealand. We have a significant home repair program across the country with a number of stakeholders, including Te Puni Kōkiri. We deliver the Healthy Homes Initiative, again, across Taitoko in partnership with the District Health Board, again, across the country as well. So that's us. In defining the need, I think that was pretty well articulated by Jeff Murray and Andrew McKenzie, who presented here earlier in the week. So I don't really want to dwell on that. Actually, really, I suppose, put this in context, maybe talk about the future need of this wonderful city that we have, and really what is required to continue to make it, a beautiful, functional, and more importantly, an accessible place to live for this population. I think for this to be addressed, fundamentally, we do need to address the access to land and increased density in an urban context. In particular, when I say urban context, I mean that in a city context, as we pertain to Whangarei. The reason why I think we need this is really to enable people to access housing at tenure types at an affordability level that is broad and fits their need at their income level. And this is a range of essentially housing products across the continuum, from obviously emergency housing all the way through to market, with a number of touch points in between to provide access to people. I think as well we need to be kind of mindful of the Queenstown Lakes situation. If people aren't aware, a number of years ago it wasn't really perceived that there was a problem in Queenstown, and then very quickly there just was not access to housing for people that actually were servicing their community. And we're talking about teachers, forklift truck drivers, people who work in New World. It's not just necessarily in the home ownership context, but actually in an affordable rental context as well. And this does need to be addressed. This is essentially about the future of the city and having a population that can not just live but service this community. So I think fundamentally as well, when we actually look at how we're going to address this need, Kia ora have relatively big intentions in the city, but I think they're wanting to build 235 houses over the next 3 years. That's not going to touch the size, essentially, of the need. They're also looking at, I think they stated, I saw in the newspaper yesterday, about 6% of their current housing stock to bring up to standard. I mean, that's 140 homes of 2,300. Now, I don't in any way mean to denigrate the work of KO, because I think it's very important. But what I really am trying to articulate is that they are not the only solution to this problem in Whangarei. And I think that also that solution requires a very vibrant and healthy community housing provider sector that can start filling some of the gaps that are not going to all just be filled by KO or by a market product, and bringing our needs and experience. The community housing sector across this country has significant access to finance now. The government's kind of helping with that, but also we have now a very vibrant bond market and banking sector that is now more understanding of how we work as an organisation and others like ourselves. We have a strong track record of delivery, but more importantly, ourselves and other organisations are very deeply connected to the people we seek to serve, the people that require access to housing and additional wraparound support around that. And I think this plethora of organisations, whether they're community housing providers or just community organisations on the ground, perform a really important service for this community. And I think, therefore, if we're going to address some of the solutions here, this sector needs to be acknowledged, but it also needs to be supported to build capacity. The government has recognised through its housing plan that they want to help build capacity within the public housing sector. They have provided some funding mechanisms to allow this to happen. But this is where I think council also has an important role to play, because it still does not address our access to land and affordability within that. I think as far as council is concerned, I think you have a really important role to play in essentially addressing higher density in a city context, utilising existing council land, lobbying and advocating for inclusionary zoning through special housing areas, and I see this as quite very important actually for areas like Martin City and Port Nicoll, and obviously here in an urban context. I will give 30 more seconds if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. And I think we call upon this council. We understand that there is a housing strategy being talked of at the moment. We do ask you to engage the community housing sector. We have a wealth of experience beyond just what a market product or a shared equity product might be in social housing. We understand the sector. We have finance to bring. We have a breadth of experience that we can bring to bear on this, and we can deliver new housing products. And we are right now. We have 100 homes pipelined, none of which are in Whangarei at the current time, but we have the capacity to do so. We are really seeking to engage in this housing strategy process and make our voice heard, that we are also part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, comrade. Timing is impeccable and that is very speedy.
Thank you.
Councillors, that is the end of our public forum. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
For all of our presenters to the public forum. Councillors, item 5.1, the Whangarei District Council meeting minutes, including the confidential section for our meeting held on the 24th of June. Can I have somebody move their return to record of the proceedings? Councillor Peters. Councillor Peters. Councillor Peters. Councillor Peters. I will remind you in standing orders, you only leave your seat with the permission of the chair. Thank you. Councillor Dean is moving to a correct record. Councillor Innes is seconding. Any corrections or amendments required?
Yes, Your Worship.
Councillor Pulse.
Just being real technical, but on page 14 and page 15, to do with Whangarei District Mary Ward, it's got page 14 is duplicated over the page. Whangarei District Mary Ward represented by 2 married councillors. Well, actually, anyone can stand in Mary Ward. Kaki Hart can stand in Mary Ward.
Through me, I think Councillor Ross is referring to the fact that you need to be nominated as on the roll to be on to the you don't necessarily need to be voted to be on.
Councillor House, you are correct in highlighting that. However, this is an accurate reflection of the minutes of what we passed at the meeting. I think the time for any changes to that will be at that meeting. The point of the minutes are to accurately reflect what happened at the meeting. I understand your point, but these are the correct.
Well, could I ask you how you're going to correct it then, because it's totally wrong?
The minutes are correct. I agree with you that the inference is that the inference is incorrect, because anybody may stand in those as a candidate. But today our purpose is to confirm the minutes. I understand what you're saying. Any further corrections? I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Item 5.2, the minutes of our meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of June. Can I have somebody move that they're a true and correct record of the proceedings of that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Reid. And seconder, Councillor O'Connor. Any corrections or amendments required? Now I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.1, page 28 of our agenda, contract 21015, Port Road Bridge widening and Kioranoa Road intersection upgrade contract award. There is a recommendation on page 28. Welcome, Jeff and Mark. The recommendation reads that the Whangarei District Council award the contract for Port Road Bridge widening and Kioranoa Road intersection upgrade to United Civil Construction Limited for $7,319,053.22, excluding GST. This approval is for separable portions 1 and 2 only. Do I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor Reid is moving and Councillor Holmes is seconding. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we all know, this is just an addition to the progress that we need within our city, and it's a huge focus in that area for incoming and outgoing traffic, and I fully support the whole scheme that we have set up for that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Any further discussion? Councillor Connor.
Just a question on the, was there reasoning behind the simple orange differential between the two? Well, between the three and the two being similar?
Sorry.
So with the three prices, was there a reasoning for the two being quite high and one being quite low? What was the reasoning behind that one?
We did investigate the low price, which was reasonably close to our estimate. And we are satisfied that the contractor has confirmed that he can complete the work for the price that is quoted, with the additional bits that we've put in. I think the other two prices reflect the current market and the impact of COVID, and particularly in this contract, the risk of the supply chain and the ability to get steel and other resources, and they've reflected that risk in their price. We have looked at another method of early ordering of materials to give the contractor some confidence of his supply chain, so basically reducing and sharing that risk between the council and the contractor. So yes, we're confident. He is a competent contractor, worked in the local region for a number of years, done a number of large projects for council, so we are confident that we can do that.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Your Worship. This bridge has been talked about and been trying to the quest has been trying to be resolved for a number of years, and it's good to see it's finally before us. And because this is one of the main tricky alignments with the rail line on one side, the harbour on the other side, and a whole lot of constraints. But it's good to see we progress this, and it was actually identified years ago to be done. And it's good to see the walkway and that on the other side. So, no, it's fully supported.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to see the 3 metre width for the shared path. It's going to be just fantastic having that access through there for pedestrians and cyclists. Just looking at the what's happened in Westport and Ashburton lately with the bridges and high rainfall. Just wondering if when we do the work on the bridge, will we be replacing or increasing the resilience of any other infrastructure, stormwater or wastewater at the same time?
So we are lifting the new bridge up so that it's going to be capable for 100 years worth of sea level rise as well as 100 years storm event at the same time. The old bridge is obviously a bit lower, and I guess over time that will need to be replaced in about 40 years, and the expectation is that we lift that up at that time that it's replaced. In terms of other services, around the bridge there's actually not that many services. There is a massive sewer line that goes underneath, but that's already been dug down under the river, so that's already protected. And we're just relocating power poles and that sort of stuff, which we're actually done now. It's completed as enabling works, and so they will be basically incorporated into the bridge itself, sort of underground. And one thing we're doing with stormwater is we're providing for water quality treatment as well, for the water that comes off the new bridge.
That's great. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for the question.
Councillor Innes.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this. It's really long overdue. I think it ties together what we call sort of the marine industrial area that has a lot of yachts and boats where they walk through to the central area. So this will tie that together, and I see then there's a third portion that we'll need to consider, the intersection, but to get the bridge and also a walkway through there is a real improvement on the current situation for those using that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Innes. Councillor Paul.
Through you, Madam Chair, just a question. Is there any reason why the plan was not included in this agenda item?
The plan, so the plan has been submitted to council on previous occasions at least twice. This particular agenda item is about a contract for building it. So I assume, we've assumed that council's aware of the project because it has been, I've been to a couple of council meetings or workshops and was included in that agenda. So I apologise if you didn't. We have the plans available if you'd like a copy.
Through you, Madam Chair, the reason I was asking the questions would be when we do agenda items like this, for the public to have access so they can see actually a diagram of what it actually looks like, so that they are prepared for when this construction work actually starts and they know what they're expecting. Just as a fullness and completeness, that's all, Worship.
Through you, Your Worship, we will have a communication plan to go with the project. There will be a press release following this council meeting if it's approved by council, and we will follow up with other information, including plans for the public as part of our project communication plans.
Excellent, thank you. I, for one, wholeheartedly support this. Awarding a contract that comes close to an engineer's estimate is a little unusual in this day and age, but also just hearing you talk about 100-year horizons and 40-year horizons, that's what we do. We look way into the future, so well done to the team for doing everything that's required for future generations to look back and go, they did good, as we are for previous councils. Any further discussion? We would like to reply, Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to all the councillors for their support on this. It's just a piece of my vision for that area of town for the future. To Jeff and your team, I know you've done a massive amount of work on this, and thank you for all your efforts. It's good to see something coming out of it now. Thank you.
Right, reply has been had. I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.2, easement request, Marsden Maritime Holdings, page 34 of our agenda. The recommendations read that the Whangarei District Council, pursuant to Section 48 of the Reserves Act 1977, 1. Accepts the application by Marsden Maritime Holdings for an access easement over lot 804 DP 3761445, and 2. Resolves that the application by Marsden Maritime Holdings for an access easement over lot 804 DP 3761445 is to be publicly notified and objections or submissions called for. Councillor Cooper, are you moving those recommendations?
Thank you.
Councillor Cooper is moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Connor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to move these recommendations, this agenda item. It seems to me that there's a problem there that needs solving, and it definitely is a bit of a conundrum because we do have a busy boat ramp, which I use regularly myself, and while I don't pay many fishing prowess, I do say that I'm very keen on it. So it is a busy place, and I can attest to that. However, the building has been built, and it would appear that it needs to have access to that end to be functional, and we have issued a resource consent to build it in that manner. I believe that if we put it out for submissions and people can object and so on, we will give the public a chance to have their say, while at the same time trying to advance and solve the problem. So that's why I'm happy to support this motion.
Councillor Cooper. Any further discussion? Councillor Deeman.
Well, I'm generally, thank you, happy to support any economic and market development in the area. I really do have strong reservations about mixing recreational use with commercial use in a public reserve. However, with those strong reservations, this is going out for public comment. I'm actually aghast to find that a resource consent was issued to build a building of this nature, which then requires access for loading across a public reserve. I mean, I presume the foresight didn't allow for that when the building consents or original resource consents were issued. And that is a concern and something that I think Council actually needs to have a better look at for any future developments. I suspect that the community are not going to be happy about this solution, so whatever we decide today, we're going to be between a rock and a hard place. So I'll leave it with the committee to make the decision.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. Councillor Connor.
Yeah, so my history is kind of impacted in both of these areas. I've worked in the supermarket and I've also worked in the Parks Department. I've looked after this area directly myself personally, and I know that also a lot of supermarket trucks come early in the morning, whilst there are some during the day too. Most of the time, and I've been there through summer and I've been there through winter as well, and I've seen the impact that it has and also seen the quietness that the area has. I don't see it to be, it won't be as massive an impact as I think we're thinking as well. A lot of trucks, the foodstuffs trucks turn up early in the morning to be able to get things out of the way and done, so even the one at Whangarei New World turns up at like 6 a.m. earlier. So with that, there's not going to be a lot of boats and people out there doing the waterways and whatnot. But no, it's like I'm supportive of this. It's one of those things that I can see the issues with it. I can also see other areas where we've allowed people to have their residential areas parking on car parks, which is a public car parking stuff as well, which I personally see as a bit of a, whereas this is a slightly different thing, but they're only moving through the area. So it's, I'm supportive of this, but it's just something that's will be adjusted as over time, and the fact that they'll have a supermarket there as well will be another benefit for that area too. So, we're going to dairy, but
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Insight into those two areas. Councillor Copperwood.
Just a question on the motion that's put forward. The comment was made that the building's already been built. Has that actually happened?
Through the chair, we could just check with the building owners behind us.
We're getting nods from behind you.
But in terms of the earlier comment through you, it is, the consent provides for two options. One is for it not to use the reserve, so that has been consented, but the preferred option by the owners is to come in through the reserve. So council have not issued a resource consent with a fait accompli that you must approve the access through the recreation reserve. It's just a preferred option.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question on that? So on pages 73 and 74 of our agenda, I don't know if electronically they're the same, but they're the approved maps showing the two options for truck access. The first shows trucks coming in and then I'm presuming reversing in, and the other is to use the easement over our reserve. So am I right in thinking that if this application for easement goes through a process and is declined, and then that second option would be what is implemented for access for vehicles, trucks to load?
It would have to be, it's nobody else.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. So, yeah, councillors, just to be clear, I guess there is a plan B, but it's not the preferred plan. While I've got the floor, I would say that my preference would have been to look at access onto the road front so that the trucks could go in and out, but obviously we're a little bit beyond that point through the building design, and it seems unfortunate. My only other comment is on page 37 of our printed agendas was the policy and planning implications. That statement, the desire for this easement relates to the convenience of the adjacent development. And councillors might wish to consider why ratepayers and boaties should be inconvenienced by what appears to be poor planning by the developer. However, we also, as Councillor Denley pointed out, have given consent for this to proceed. And clearly it is a benefit to the wider community over time with, with delivery of food, which is necessary. So it's a tricky one. Any further discussion? Councillor Innes?
Thank you, Worship. I just see a real lack of planning, actually, detailed planning for this area. And I know Councillor Connor, I'm a keen fisherman, and I know that 6 o'clock in the morning is the time you tend to go out fishing. So if you want to catch fish, Councillor Cooper, so it might be a problem. So so I feel that we need to take a lesson from this, I think, in terms of detailed planning. It seems to me that we need to go out, get public comment on it, but and I would hopefully see that the fishing community or those using the boat ramp would also provide submission on that. Thank you.
Councillor Connor, question?
Yeah. We're talking this as a reserve, but it is a car park, is it not?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's
So it's not
under
like-
the Reserves Act.
Yes, but it's we're all talking about a reserve. So if somebody's listening to this, it sounds like, oh no, we're taking away a reserve, a green area, whereas this is already a tar sealed car park area. So it's just
For
clarification.
that question?
Yeah.
Well, it was a question to make sure it was.
Yes. Councillor Holmes?
Yes, I won't go over what's already been stated, but when you're offloading and unloading trucks, is it going to be on the store side of the easement, or is it going to be out
It will be on the school side of the easement. It will be
So
on
there's nothing in
private
there?
property when they're unloaded.
Councillor Reid?
I've got some mixed emotions here because I'm a keen boatie and I'm also a transport operator. Mixing trucks and pedestrians and cars is a very, very dangerous thing to be involved in. And before any decision is made with the public comment, I would recommend that we get people who do the deliveries to this place to have some involvement in that, because their thinking will be critical because they'll be thinking safety as well.
Councillor Golightly?
Thank you, Worship. I was just going to ask a question. Is this area well lit, lighting-wise? I'm assuming.
There is lighting at the moment. We assume that most of the time that trucks arrive, it will be during daytime and not at night. Should that ever become an issue, we will need to first under our own health and safety regulations to put more light on.
I just thought in like early in the morning.
Councillors, can I just remind you, it's highly inappropriate to engage with members of the public. We are dealing with our staff. I appreciate that we have expertise in the room. However, this is our council meeting, and if we wished the applicant to speak, we would have expected a request for that. So I just need you to caution, and I would hope that our staff have the answers. But I see them deferring to people in the room. So just a reminder again about protocols of meeting behaviour. Thank you all. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Through the chair to the staff. Yes, it is really interesting. I support and I hear what Councillor Deeming says, but in Tutukaka we see that conflict between reserve, boat users, but also the shop owners at Oceans. So you've got that commercial, recreational demand. So this is interesting. I can see, it will change things a lot. My question is, with the easement, those trucks will be coming and going, but as far as car parking for the the actual supermarket itself, are those, and sorry, it probably is in the detail, but I just didn't pick up on it. Were the car parks that were built for the supermarket, were they part of the reserve?
Through the chair, the car parking for the supermarket is provided elsewhere.
Elsewhere, because I've seen the map to the right.
To the east of the way.
To the east.
If that's in the south then.
Okay, so just one comment, and it's kind of a little bit to the side, but I just hope so the Pack and Save car park in Whangarei, no stormwater retention or attenuation or rain gardens that I could see. Also, I really hope that our new, any new car parks going in, particularly in coastal areas, have stormwater treatment as part of the resource consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Any further discussion? Councillor Cooper, you're right up the line.
Thank you very much. It's been an interesting debate. The aspect of safety has been raised, and if you look on page 36, the trucks would drive in Whangarei drive around the circle, and as if they were launching a boat, but instead of tapping down the ramp, they would drive forward into the loading area, be unloaded on private property, and then drive out onto the road. Whereas the less preferred option, I can understand why it is less preferred, would have trucks reversing in a car park at the other side, at the other end of the shop. So I do think that for the stated number of truck movement, which is 4.5 a day, and on busy days when people are out fishing and council owners have left early, then those movements are actually restricted to 1.5. I get a half a truck movement, but that's Councillor Reid could answer that perhaps. So I think that it is logical to give the public a say. Don't forget the people who use that boat ramp, a lot of them live in the area, and there's benefits of having a supermarket as well. They must understand that, as well as the maritime holdings, and it's a big employer in the area. So I think it is fair to put it out for public consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. The right of replies can have. I'll put the motions. Those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 6.3, page 78 of our agenda, review excuse me, of the board venues policy in 2021. The recommendations are 1, that Council 1 determines the statutory review of Council's board venue policy is complete, and 2, retains the existing board venue policy with no changes. I will move those recommendations. Do I have a second? Councillor Martin is seconding. Councillors, the reason I've removed that is just to make it clear that we have already been through quite a lengthy discussion around our options, just so that our members of the community can understand that we did look at this quite comprehensively as to what our options are. You'll note in our agenda on page 184 of the agenda, it goes through the summary of our policy options, the impacts, the costs, benefits and risks. And you'll note that of the 6 options that we looked at, option 4 is status quo, which is a sinking lid on the venue's electronic gaming machines and allow restricted relocation and merger. And those impacts, costs, benefits and risks across that option are covered. And this is what we are recommending today, that we retain our board venue policy with no changes. Any discussion?
I'm checking, is it page 84 or 184?
Did I look at the next option?
So we're on page 78?
No, that's all part of the same agenda. Page 184 is the last page of this agenda item.
Sorry.
184 as opposed to, did I say 84?
6.4 is on page 120, which is the Class 4 gambling policy. And I've got review of the board venues policy on page 78. Is that what we...
You're looking at item 6.3, the review.
6.3 on page
6.4 starts at 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I have looked at the class for
Yeah.
Vita was trying to give me I beg your pardon.
The signals weren't quite clear enough.
So we've got two. We've got review of the board venues policy and then review of the class 4 gambling policy.
Yeah.
I apologise to everybody for my confusion that I've created.
But your rhetoric actually fitted with this policy.
Pretty on.
That was what I had, so I'm sure it's a bit of
They complete things.
Here we go. So, going back to the review of the board venue policy. Any discussion on that item?
No,
Councillor Dean.
I will just say what you have pretty much virtually already said, which was, as discussed at our earlier public briefing, I support retaining the existing policy as there were no potential benefits identified in making any changes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. My bad. Councillor Beanie, I keep forgetting to look across at you. Is there any comment?
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'll get off the camera when I need to talk.
Thank you very much.
He wants to declare an interest.
And so we have any further discussion on this particular policy, the board venue policy? No further discussion?
Page you were referring to is 80. Objection.
I will put the agenda, motion. Those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 6.4, the review of the Class 4 gambling policy. I'll need to look closer at Vita because you've given me good advice. So the recommendations for this are that Council determines the statutory review of Council's Class 4 gambling policy is complete, and 2, retains the existing Class 4 gambling policy with no changes. Do I have a mover for those recommendations? Councillor Dean is moving, and Councillor Ennis is seconding. Councillor Dean.
Same comments virtually as the
Sorry,
previous.
Councillor Dean, just before you do, Councillor Reid is declaring an interest in this item. Before we discuss you.
No others?
No others declaring an interest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll continue then. Same as my comments on the previous policy, is that we have had a publicly open discussion on the topic, a briefing that anybody could have attended if they wished, and we didn't identify any benefits in making any amendments, so accordingly I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Any further discussion? Councillor Gobarty.
Thank you, Worship. I think I've spoken on this before, how, and I don't like it, but I just sort of want to put it out there is that there's so many negatives with these machines, and I mean, and all through this brief, it's like, you know, we've seen an increase in expenditure on electronic gaming machines, and it's all throughout the report. But I'm just kind of, I suppose for me, it's just a question with the sinking lid sort of policy that we have. Is it sinking the lid quick enough? I mean, is the outcome to basically eradicate these machines, or are we just status quo and they just continue and continue and we don't really have any sinking of the lids, so to speak? So it's just a question. Peter.
Through the Chair, the legislation requires Council to find a balanced approach between minimising harm from gambling and, on the other hand, providing opportunities for gambling as a source of entertainment, employment and community funding. And even though there has been a significant reduction in venues under the sinking lid policy, it remains a balancing act to choose the correct policy setting.
I suppose it's just, for me, it's just, the balance just doesn't seem to be there, but that's just me, so thank you.
Councillor Reid.
I'm not in favour or against, but just an outline. There are extremely strict guidelines and management policies around any form of gambling. in the public arena, I suppose, for want of a better phrase. But now, you also have online gambling, which puts nothing back into your community. It just simply takes. That is something we can't control. This is something we can. So it was just more an overview. So I think they do a fantastic job of what they do now.
Councillor Reid. Councillor Cocker-Willow.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Look, page, I want to just highlight to councillors, page 138, which has got the table 2 graph in there. There's a lot of statistics out there which talk about how harmful gambling is and how bad it is. Councillor Reid has highlighted quite quickly that the restrictions that are put on the gaming facilities to actually run these machines is quite hard. And when I talk to the problem with gambling people down at the local government conference, they also acknowledged that the restrictions that have been put onto them, onto the actual providers of these gaming machines, they would like them harder, understandably. But I think we really do miss where the gambling problem actually is, and COVID-19 really hit it. As the problem gambling guys informed me, that lottery sales were up, and the Lottery Board of Lotteries was actually citing about how many people were actually signed up to their app and using their lottery apps online. So while I appreciate that we are status quo with Whangarei and showing the stats there that we are below the New Zealand average, I think we need to also focus it from a council point of view to go back to central government and maybe put a remit in to say that there needs to be more restrictions done onto lotteries about how they are sold, how they are distributed, and how they advertise at peak time during the day when most of the people are at home eating their dinner.
Councillor Cocker-Willow. Councillor Martin.
Yeah. We, 3 years ago when we reviewed this policy, we had a significant number of people come in. And most of the people who came recognised the stern warnings that organisations got if they breached the rules. They shut them down. And so I'm much more comfortable having an organisation where the managers are trained, they identify problem gamblers, they have a linkage between all of them where they let people know where they're going and monitor it. Because when you've got all the online, anybody can do it anytime and it's fun games. Even the kids can do it. Anybody can do it. And so I'd much rather see, as Councillor Cocker-Willow said, more controls on just the open slather online, and I'm happy to have people monitoring and keeping an eye on the problem gamblers as they go into the next year. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Murphy.
Oh, thank you, Rita, for your work. And yes, I do remember really clearly when we went through this very thoroughly three years ago. It was really interesting. We had lots of signatures on both sides, so that was very educational. I just wanted to point out it is interesting to see that after the drop during COVID, when there was nothing, that since then, Whangarei has actually experienced a growth, and average spending per machine is actually higher than it was beforehand. So it's not just the online; it's actually at on those gaming machines. So it is an issue for our city. So no, I'm really pleased with the recommendation. I think that we have got this right. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Murphy. Any further discussion? Councillor Dean, will run reply.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Vita, for all the work you've done. This is really a good presentation. Thank you. I just wanted to comment, following Councillor Cocker-Willow. What really horrifies me is the ad on TV for the lotteries where the people are making their coffee, getting in their jammies and cuddling up in their bed with their machine gambling. I mean, how is that fair to the general public or the people who are compulsive gamblers? They don't even go out and socialise or work in the area where they can actually, as Councillor Martin and Councillor Reid mentioned, be supervised and helped if necessary. I don't get why that type of advertising can be allowed. Anyhow, thank you. I think everything pretty much has been said other than that. So,
The right of reply has been heard. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
Councillor Golightly would like to vote against to be recorded. Carried. Item 6.5, the trade waste bylaw review, adoption of the statement of proposal. We've got a number of recommendations here. I will read them out. The recommendations are that the Whangarei District Council 1 reviews the trade waste bylaw as per section 160 of the Local Government Act and resolves that the bylaw should be amended. 2, makes determinations in accordance with 155 of the Local Government Act that the proposed amended trade waste bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing the perceived problem and is the most appropriate form of bylaw and does not give rise to any implications under the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act 1990. 3, adopts the statement of proposal, which is attachment 1, and summary of information, attachment 2, for public consultation using the special consultative procedure in accordance with sections 86 and 156 of the Local Government Act. 4, approves the draft of the trade waste policy to be finalised in parallel with the bylaw amendment. And 5, authorises the Chief Executive to make any necessary minor drafting or presentation amendments to the statement of proposal and summary of information, and to approve the final design and layout of the documents prior to final printing and publication. Lots of recommendations. Do I have a mover for those, please? Councillor Deeming, seconder. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Deeming.
Thank you. Again, we've had a public discussion and briefing. Oh, God. Sorry. And 4.1 on this agenda, page 187, defines sound reasons for why an amendment is needed. Discussion during the public briefing identified the option supporting the comment in 4.1 as being the most appropriate, and accordingly I support the recommendation that we go out, and we are required to go out for public consultation when there is a proposed change. So I support the recommendations as they are defined.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Any further discussion? Councillor Connell.
Just even with this, the name trade waste, to your average person, it sounds very confusing considering what it actually is, and it is a discharge to a waterway, whereas people could construe it also as other waste as well, which could be confusing. It's just one point that I'd like to mention, because even through the original thing, it's like, what actually is this? But also in regards to this is the detail about the mortuary waste and the putting out to waterway and whatnot. Is something that definitely needs to be heard from, especially considering the environmental impacts, but also the Whangarei impacts as well of that space. So it definitely needs to be looked at in these areas and looked at.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Any further discussion? Councillors, I also support the bylaw going out and the trade waste policy. It is an interesting point you make around trade waste and its definition, because it is about discharge of trade waste to our wastewater system, and it's highly critical that we get this right so that we prevent any environmental potential disasters through that system. And control. And I also, as Councillor Deeming has pointed out, the improvements that in the drafting of this bylaw, including removing a lot of the technical detail, the physical and chemical limits, they can be adjusted as new information becomes available, because they can change at the national level. And I think it saves an awful lot of changing. If there are changes to the national level standards, we can just amend the technical details. And the current bylaw doesn't offer the flexibility for council to choose a waste tracking system other than the one integrated in the current MFE code of practice. So there will be people who are intensely interested in this because of their interest in trade waste bylaw. And I would imagine that most of those people will be the people who are feeding waste into our wastewater network. Councillor Connacht's point around the discharge of mortuary wastewater into the public wastewater system is highlighted in the draft for public comment and feedback. And our current intent is to include dealing with that bylaw in relation to the wastewater. So there may be a better to better regulate this issue. But we have opted at this stage to continue with the trade waste bylaw review in isolation at this time. Perhaps there will be some feedback from our community on that aspect of it. Noting also that, of course, the trade waste policy is going out in parallel, and the policy is brief, but it does contain some really chemical names. Always love that. Any further discussion? Councillor Murphy?
Thank you. Could you just go over for me again the tracking system that the mayor just referred to? So I can't remember.
So currently what they use is a system called WasteTrack, which is nominated in the Wasteman's Group Code of Contract of operators. And what that does is it's not actually a physical GIS beacon or locator attached to the trucks, but what the licensees are required to do is to enter the collection point and the delivery point manually on a system, and then they have manual charge and fee and it's tracked that way by trade waste officer.
Okay, because I guess I'm thinking about, remember when our wastewater treatment system was hit really hard when someone illegally dumped chemicals from somewhere in town, we didn't know where. So can the tracking system, is there any way we can kind of use that?
We can't really, so the waste track is more around the physical movement, so from the trade waste premises, they basically go out with a vacuum truck, suck out from the grease traps and take it and dispose of it at the treatment plant, whereas that is more somebody injecting something into the actual wastewater system, part of the network. So the tracking of the trucks is something that's controlled, but this is something, and it was just by sleuth work that they managed to find what the source of the pollution was.
Okay, I think it's good that this goes out for consultation, and that's very, very important. So hopefully we'll have a good level of engagement. Maybe Councillor Connacht can do one of his great videos to promote it.
As long as you use any further discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.6, page 242, the Whangarei Art Museum Trust variation of lease. The recommendations are, and there is an error in here which I'll cover. The Council 1 approves the variation to the deed of lease between Whangarei Art Museum Trust and Whangarei District Council dated 20 June 2018, whereby the leased area is extended to include the landscaped area as shown on the plan attached to the agenda report. And 2, confirms the tenant has changed its name to Hatia Art Precinct Trust, not Heritage, and this should be reflected in variation to the deed of lease. And 3, authorises the Chief Executive to execute the variation of deed of lease. Councillor Cooper?
Can I declare an interest, please?
You are the council appointed trustee to the Whangarei Art Museum Trust, or Hatia Art Precinct Trust. Councillor Cooper is moving. I will second that motion. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much. Seems to me that this makes sense, and for the Hatia Art Precinct to have control of the area immediately around the Whangarei Museum, and it allows them to sort of integrate the indoor and outdoor flow and have a little more control. So it makes sense, and I think I'm happy to approve it or support it. So.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cockburn.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, the question that comes to mind is when we hand over something to another body, there is a chance that they will then fence it up to not allow people to have access to it. Will that be possible?
In
it doesn't specifically say in the lease that they can fence off this area, but we could add a clause saying that there will be public access to the immediate surrounds. I understand the trust may wish to control access to the roof. I don't know what that means.
Through Chair, this still brings to question mine there. I feel more comfortable if it was made that the public have access, because it is the public's money which has gone into this building. So therefore, if the public have access to the roof, it does make sense that. Now the question does then lie into the fact that what actually benefit will be for the trust to actually have ownership or control. What they mean by the words control for the area.
I think that is pretty well covered in the agenda item. Sue,
through you, Madam Chair, in terms of control, they would like to control what the gardens and landscape features look like in that area. They would like to ensure that they are the ones that would change those in the future, rather than council trying to integrate that into some other landscaping theme that we might have outside of this. They believe that immediate area is part of the architecture of the building, so they would like that all to have kind of a Whangarei style architecture and control that.
So just further to that question, the area of the increase to the lease that they're requesting, is that the area of landscaping that the Art Museum Trust have done the landscape, paid for the landscaping of that area?
Yes, that is what they...
So that encompasses the piece that they actually invested in?
Yes. The only amendment to this plan here, there are 2 green areas that the line goes through, and after the agenda was already printed, the trust got back to me and said that they would be happy to put all of the grass area into council's mowing contract, or they have all the hard surface. So those are just 2 small areas there.
Councillor Klein.
On page 274 is the map of this area, which is to me, it's logical that this is being done in this way. I've worked down in the town basin myself before, and the garden that has the huge Whangarei tree is taken away out of this plan, so it's still in our hands looking after. The Tikakano seed that's there which was the seed from the start of this, is now in their control to be looked after and maintained. All the area that's being paved is all the different kind of mixed media type of footprint that we would have to maintain, and we do not have probably the resources to be able to do so, because we have a lot of other usual type of ones, where this is more specific to the actual design of the Whangarei building. Knowing about the landscaping and seeing that, it's absolutely logical, because otherwise it's just that inside area and it doesn't quite fit with the rest of it. I don't see any fencing being able to be put up in these type of areas, because it is still that public area that comes through, but the responsibility of looking after it and maintaining it to the same standard is what it is. Most of the area is going to be paved, as we can see, and there's a small area that is around Tikakano, which is grass, but that's outside of the garden anyway, so I can see the point there. This seems to be just logical to make sure it fits with the rest of it, and it doesn't seem to be a lot more maintaining, considering they've already got the whole roof that we need to be maintained with the trees, but then there's a few new trees that I can see going around here as well that they'll want to make sure fit within the same thing, and they'd be doing it at the same time. So to me, this seems very, very logical. So.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Bishop. Forgive my sometimes selective hearing, but did you say the Whangarei Art Precinct Trust?
Correct.
Or the Heritage?
Whangarei. Yeah, it was incorrect in the... Thank you. Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Worship. Just adding to the comments that have been made in support. It's the Whangarei Foundation in Vienna who has really initiated this in terms of requesting that this area is included as part of what they see the wider building envelope. So on the basis of that, I see that there's a delicate balance there in terms of the relationship of WHAM with the Whangarei Foundation. I support this option as one that will reinforce and support that wider relationship with the foundation. Thank you.
Councillor Ennis. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. This is good because I've actually always wondered this because I had visions of myself running through our new park, and then running up the roof of the Whangarei. So I've always wondered, will that be closed off? Would you actually have to pay an entry fee to get into the garden patch? So I'm just not clear after Councillor Cockerello's question about whether it would be fenced off.
Through the chair, they already leased the buildings prior to this report, so that's always been under their control anyway. Whether it's to be open to the public, I don't know.
We don't know.
Again, that will be a decision for the Whangarei Art Museum Trust because they do have the lease of the building and the roof. My understanding is that the access to the roof will be part of the admission, so that the overall experience, so that there's sort of that exclusivity. But there is a decision for the Whangarei Art Museum Trust, not for the council, because they have the lease. But that is my current understanding. Councillor Cockerello, a question?
Yes, Madam Chair. The new land that's also the area that the trust are wanting to take control of, there is public services underneath that. What negotiations will have taken place when these services need to be upgraded or changed or anything like that? What restrictions is the question I'm asking that the trust will actually put on council to actually upgrade those services?
Through the chair, we can make sure that that is covered in the lease, that council will have access to the underground services should it need to make repairs or renewals.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, go on.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Bishop. Mine's more technical about the lease arrangement. It's all very well, I've got no problem with the intent, but it's actually practicality of how it's going to work. Basically, when you sign a lease, you're given all the rights and authority to the leasee. And so you've got limited access. And yet down here in the commentary on page 243, it says that the council's going to maintain all the trees on the roof of the building. The trees on the roof of the building is actually part of the building. I don't see why we're leasing something that's actually integral to the building itself. It is sold to the community that it's going to have a soil roof and with trees and that on. And so are we going to manage this with a service agreement with WHAM? Because the general one is, they've got the lease, we've granted them the lease, they therefore should contract council to do the works. And then there's a separation, because I can see this in a couple of years' time, sitting around this table and going over and say, well, council said this, WHAM said that, and we haven't got it formally tied up. And I think it's the cleanest way would have been doing it was to give WHAM a grant to maintain the roof, and then they could pay the council out of that grant. But we need to have a separation from issuing a lease, which gives the rights to WHAM, and for us as council. Otherwise, it could be a situation where WHAM say, I don't want you to do work this time of the year, go away to council, when we've got the operation, we've got an obligation that we pass is to look after those trees. So I think there's some complications coming if we don't change it. And that's said by being on a council-controlled organisation and having some good in-depth knowledge of things like this.
I agree that this definitely needs to be clear as to whose responsibilities are whose, and I think that's the absolute intent, is to have a maintenance agreement to ensure that if we extend the lease, it's a maintenance agreement, and I agree entirely. The original lease conditions are in that clause 8.1, which requires them to in italics. So it is, I agree with you, very important that everybody understands who's responsible for what and who pays.
So have we got any idea how we're going to get that in there? Like what's...
It's already in the lease, so it's how we implement it, right? And we're already in conversations with them about what the maintenance plan is. It will go into our contract and be undertaken by the contractor who was down there working. Some of it might need to go to a specialist contractor, but our contractor will subcontract that to other people. So there's only one contractor in charge of maintenance down there, and they'll have other people doing some of the work, such as the water feature. Our Parks and Gardens contractor might not do that. He will be responsible for it. He'll get a subcontractor to do that. And same with the roof. If there's elements that are outside their expertise, they will subcontract someone else. But there'll be one contractor down there in charge of maintenance.
You wish to add other contractors, other point been brought up in discussion already is by having people outside the country making a few requests on local councils. So that's why I wanted to cover the seats with you.
Councillors, I'm in full support of the motions. Initially, I thought we had it covered with the lease for the building footprint. Then I looked at it from the perspective of the people who have actually paid for the landscaping to be done, and the paving is, as you'll see, it's really complex and intricate. And I guess, you know, if you've paid for something to be done to a certain standard, you don't want to have the risk that somebody else might come along and go, let's do some geometric, lift up that paving and do it in a different style. So I completely get the reason why the Whangarei Museum Trust would want to have control over what they have invested in on the ground. When we talk about landscaping, often we'll be thinking about trees and shrubs, and I think the fact that they are saying that the rooftop garden will be maintained by the contractors who understand trees and plantings, but they want the control of the paving. I think we need to make that quite clear that that's the distinction. And Te Kāpano, again, is currently already is leased and maintained by the Whangarei Museum Trust and will remain leased and to and maintained by the Whangarei Museum Trust. So it's almost like the hard landscaping, but there are tree tenants, as we know, will be their responsibility. And I think that actually makes sense. But I totally endorse the sense that we need to make it very clear in a maintenance agreement who is responsible for what and who will be paying for those things. Initially I looked and I thought, what's the purpose? But then I completely get it, that the investment into the landscaping is by the Whangarei Museum Trust, and they need to have that control. Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Just a question. I know Hundavasa, of course, was a great ecologist, and he would have, garden spray free. So my question is, and I'm a big advocate for council having its own spray free parks, playgrounds and streets policy. But I'm just interested to know, hopefully, the maintenance contract, is there anything specified about whether there would be chemicals used or not?
Through the chair, the town basin area is already a glyphosate-free area. We don't use that down there, and we use electric machinery where we can, so we try and be as sustainable and environmentally aware as we can. So I don't expect that we're going to be using glyphosate there. Other chemicals sometimes are used for different reasons, so I wouldn't like to say no chemicals in case there's a need for a pesticide for some reason. But generally, it's spray-free down there.
It's good. It would be a good matter for the Hatia Art Museum Trust to discuss. That they may like to discuss that as it might have been one of Hundabasa's wishes. Thank you.
Just to clarify one question there, with the questions that we've asked around in here about, and we've been told by the staff that these will be added to the trustee. Will the trustee then come back to the councillors, or will that be put all under point 3, which authorises the chief executive to make the variations? When will councillors actually get to see the final trustee?
Today is the day that we delegate to the chief executive to execute the variation of deed of lease. I'm sure that all of the points that have been raised today will become. I don't think there's any need to bring it to a full council decision, but I'm sure because of our interest in it, we'll get to see the lease before it's executed. If you would like that, and I think that would be a fair request.
Through the Chair, clause 15.1 gives the council the right to go in to replace services should it need to, replace, repair. So that's in the standard Law Society lease. Inspect, repair, renew, replace any services where they are not the responsibility of the tenant. So
That's all in the existing lease. I think it's the variation to the lease we would like to just have a bit of a scrutiny about. But we are today authorising, if it passes, authorising the Chief Executive to execute that variation. Any further discussion? Councillor Cooper, your right of reply.
Thank you very much. It's been a great debate, a conversation, and I think we shouldn't let it pass without noting that Frederick Hunterweiser would be very pleased with the vision that Councillor Murphy had of running through the and I must admit it's a vision that I entertained myself when she put it forward for a little while, and I added some of the other councillors input. But he was all about mixing the land with the building, and so I think right there he's achieved what he wanted to achieve, hasn't he? And that's probably why it's so important also to have the immediate surrounds under control of the trust, and also note Councillor Innes's comments. The relationship with Vienna is worth preserving and is very important. So there's my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper, the right of reply has been had. I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.7, the temporary road closure, Northland Car Club event, September 2021 to January 2022. There are a number of recommendations that Whangarei District Council approves the temporary closure of the following roads to ordinary traffic and extraordinary traffic, I presume, for Northland Car Club events in accordance with Section 3.2(1)(b and Schedule 10, Clause 11 of the Local Government Act. So there are dates: the 5th of September, Rosyth Road, the 3rd of October, Doctors Hill Road, Waipu, 17th of October, Crow's Nest, Nui, Sunday the 5th of December, Paiawa Road, Sunday the 30th of January 2022, Kaikanui Road, and the periods of closures are from 9:30 to 5:30. And we're approving the temporary closure of the road, side roads, off the roads to be closed for up to 100 metres from the intersection for safety purposes, and delegates to the Chair of the Infrastructure and General Manager of Infrastructure the power to give public notices to these temporary road closures. And Councillor Cockburrow always has his hand up for these. Councillor Cockburrow is moving those recommendations, and Councillor Reid is seconding. Councillor Cockburrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I don't like to take things away from the Green Bay residents, but I do have a great love for these types of guys who actually go out there and actually try to make an event on for the public. And they do try to make sure that the public actually get a good viewing of it, and they do actually try to make sure the public are very, very safe in the whole process. So they really do try their best to do this, and I really appreciate that the type of work that the Northland Car Club, along with other organisations who actually help them out, are involved with it, and the amount of the work that they do to prepare, notify, get people involved, and actually get a lot of the local communities involved as well, as I'm sure Councillor Dean can testify for that. So that's the reason why I'm moving this.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.8, tree removal within the Whangarei Falls Scenic Reserve of Sands Road track. We've got a recommendation on page 282 that Whangarei District Council gives express written consent for the removal of trees within the Whangarei Falls Scenic Reserve for the purpose of facilitating a new walking track pursuant to delegated powers under Section 42 of the Reserves Act 1977. Do I have a move for that recommendation? Councillor Innes is moving. Councillor Connors is seconding.
Thank you, Worship. It's something that we don't like to see trees being removed from reserves, but this is it links a subdivision through into the blue-green network, and I think that provides access through our network there, and Sands Road then ties through down into Whangarei in time, and what's been looked at in terms of a sort of a blue-green network that goes right out to the coast. So it seems to me the logical option that you've provided here. So yeah, I'm pleased to be able to move this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Innes. Councillor Whangarei, and thank you, Your Worship. I've just got a couple of questions because I dislike as well removing trees as much as I dislike gambling machines. So I've just got a couple of questions, and I apologise if I've missed the report. Is this just for the public access of the Sands Road subdivision residents?
Through the chair, no, this is a public.
Right, okay, thank you. Let's move in. Thank you.
Sarah, I was just interested in the wastewater pipeline. So the tree removal, I think, is just for so that the pathway can be created, the walking path. The pipeline is going to be kind of running adjacent, I see on the map. In some places it's quite close to the walkway, in other places it's quite far away. So that's a completely new pipeline.
Through the chair, yes, it is a completely new pipeline to service the subdivisions, so both the Papercones and the Jesse Trust subdivisions. And that's been dealt with by a resource consent process. But it's being thrusted, so there is no open mention. So they will not be doing any kind of, so the way that's put through will be to minimise the impact of that on the trees.
Yeah, that's interesting, because what I was wondering is, like the pipeline needed to be laid, so did we think, oh, well, if we're going to be doing the works for the pipeline, we could also create a pathway at the same time. I was kind of wondering what came first. Was it like, this is where the pipeline's going to have to go, so we can make a walkway at the same time? Like, did they naturally come together, or what was the process?
So when we were working through this subdivision with the applicants, we were looking at, there were options to take the pipeline up Sands Road and back down Whangarei Road. But this was seen to have other positive benefits. By when we put the pipeline through, we could create this track which actually opened up our network. So we saw it as a win-win scenario. It does come at some additional cost to the developers, so they have been really willing to work with us to try and come up with a positive outcome. The majority of the pipe actually goes through land that will be vested to us as reserve, but is in private ownership at the moment. So the only parts that we have any real control over are the council-owned scenic reserve area adjacent to that area. But we have also looked at making sure that the track limits the number of trees that need to be removed. So we had an arborist go through and identify those trees, and we also looked at making sure we had the gradients right for we could actually make it a good walkway. So there were areas that we did have to remove one tree, but that was because we had no other way of actually making an easy pathway for people to use.
Okay, thank you for that. That's interesting. Thanks. That's Councillor Murphy.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Connor.
Just in regards to the pathway, will that be linking up with the existing pathway through Whangarei Falls?
Yes, it will. The jetties it will.
Any further discussion? Yes.
Figuring myself out. One other thing I'd just like to say as well is it's good to be able to see that we're going to be connecting people from the new developments that are going in there, taking them away from the higher speed area out on the roadway, which will allow people to get through to those walkways, which we allow them to get through town too. I'm also glad to see that there are, within reason, minimal trees taken out to provide for this space, but also allowing for people to be able to go and experience these areas as well, because if you can't get through and the ability to walk along a pathway for many people is different. So it's having that space available for people is fantastic. So I'm glad to see there's a lot of retention of trees in this area. But I also see that with the pipeline going through one particular area, that it will not be impacted by the growth over time, and then impact with needing repairs and whatnot. Well, minimal. It probably will, but.
Councillor Cocker-Road.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. On page 295, where it shows a picture of the memorial trees that have been planted, will they be removable, mate? I was curious as to why that picture was shown in that report, and it's part of a highlighted area, so that's why I was asking.
Through the chair, because the walkway will actually connect through that area. So we have made the walkway so that it doesn't affect any of the trees that doesn't be recently planted.
I think that's made clear on page 300 in the map that shows the path actually definitely avoiding the trees that were planted. So that's quite clear. Their location is reassuring, isn't it?
Sorry, through the chair, that's part of the other lab report, so that was actually taken by the risk consultant, so that's why it's put in the report.
So we've just one more question. This is for our Chief Executive's satisfaction. I'm just wondering if there is a cat-free clause as part of that subdivision, because as we know it's really quite an important pocket of biodiversity around Whangarei Fords. So I'm just wondering, do you know
Through the chair, I'm not sure about that. It is a residential subdivision, so the lot sizes are over 400 square metre limit, so it's sort of residential area rather than a urban, but
we can't answer that question today, so whether it is a condition of the subdivision consent. I'm pleased to see that Te Parafon were consulted as part of it. I also sort of think about Ngāti Hau from Pihiawari, so yeah, I'm sure that there's connections there. Councillor Demon.
It's pleasing to see that there'll be a replacement planting to mitigate this. What I really wanted to know was whether council has any ability to require an adjacent owner to remove dead trees, because those are quite likely to fall across the track and fall on somebody's head. So what ability does council have, and what would be our responsibilities if they did fall on somebody on the track?
Sarah, Councillor Dean is referring to the photograph of the dead.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 295.
So, clause 3.6 of the Arbor Lab report talks about the dead trees and they're recommended to be removed as part of the wider pathway.
And council can actually require a person to remove them?
I'm not sure about our powers.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about a wider sort of issue.
If it's, I suppose it's probably under the, I don't know enough about the clause, I'm sorry. We probably have some powers if it is dangerous. It's probably something in the act at some point, but I don't know exactly where that might be.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Any further discussion? I'll put Councillor Innes.
Right of reply.
Right of reply.
Thank you. Just to say that good to see that when looking at a subdivision of this scale, that it's tied into other amenities and looking at the integration into the wider network. I think it's something that needs to be encouraged and provides a lot more value, not only for the residents of the subdivision, but also for the wider community. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. This is the right of reply has been prepared. I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Item 7.1, financial report for the 12 months ending 30 June 2021, the end of the year. The recommendation is that the Council notes the external net debt position and Treasury report as at the 30th of June 2021. Do I have a move for that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Golightly. And Councillor Benny's going to second that just to keep him awake. Preview is here. Thank you, Councillor Benny. Councillor Golightly.
No, I think it's all explanatory in here, and yeah, thank you very much, Alan, for the work that's gone into it.
Okay. Councillors, I think this is the very first time I've seen the net debt budget line, net debt line this close to the net debt budget line in a very, very, very long time. It's perilously close to our limit. However, that just is a reflection of the amount of work that we've invested in and on behalf of our community over the last financial year. Now that we're into the new financial year, we've still got some economic outlooks which are interesting for this current financial year. But this is a report on what's gone in the past. Any further discussion? I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye. Against? Carried. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the open portion of our session. We do have an item in the confidential section, and for the reasons included in the agenda, can I move to go into confidential? Councillor Cockerell has moved, Councillor Denny is seconding. Thank you to